Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Spracklin Podcast. I am a woman on a mission to help you get the Zettelkasten of your dreams on your work table beside you. This is a series on writing from the Zettelkasten, and I've been going through and presenting different aspects of the work that I do in the process of creating my monthly newsletter. I spend 2 weeks out of the month writing that newsletter, and so I thought I would share with you how I do that so that you would have some idea of at least one person's processes coming out of their Zettelkasten and onto a written page. Well, today I'm answering 2 questions that I thought were extremely germane to the issue of the Zettelkasten and writing from the Zettelkasten. The first question comes from Timothy, and Timothy wants to know whether or not when I'm done with the bib card that I'm creating in support of my work, or when the project itself is all done, do I then go back through and make new main cards based on insights that I may have gotten while doing that writing? And Bev asks, what if I do some new research while I'm doing that writing? What if I go back to my sources to look something new up to fill in a blank? Where does that go? Does it go on a bib card, a main card, the bib card for the project? What happens to that? And I thought they were both excellent questions, and I'm going to combine them today, and that will be the topic of my podcast. What do you do when you learn while you're writing? See you over in the down-facing camera. Okay, the first question I'm going to take up is Timothy's question. And Timothy basically wants to know about what do I do when my project is done? Do I go back through my project bib card or the writing itself to see whether or not there are new ideas that ought to be harvested onto main cards? That was a very good question, Timothy. And my first thought was, I probably should. And I think that's probably something that I'm going to start putting into my task list as I work through a given project. When I'm done, check to see, is there anything here that came to light that I would want to include? So I'm going to talk a little bit about what criteria do I have that would cause me to say, yes, this is something that I want to make a new main card out of. And I'm going to start by showing you a main card that I did make from my podcast work. But the interesting thing is I showed you this card in a previous podcast where it was mostly just a podcast prompt. It didn't have a card number, and I was talking about the things that I wanted to cover in my podcast as far as getting creativity to peak when I'm trying to write. And I ended up deciding that this was a significant idea that I do want to add to my Zettelkasten because it's part and parcel of that whole thing of effort versus creativity. Whenever you put the pressure on, creativity shrinks. At least that's my experience. And so I try to do as much writing as I can with as little pressure as possible so that the creativity can come out. So consequently, I don't want to sit and look at my work and agonize over, what more could I write? What more could I find in here? What more needs to be said? I don't want to try hard because trying implies tedious effort and it throws open the possibility of failure. I would rather experiment. Try filling in the gaps. Can I make this into a matrix? Will I get anything fun out of a question list? Would the pattern language give me some fresh ideas, where the whole thing is in the form of gameplay? So I decided that this was a significant enough idea that I did want to put it into my Zettelkasten, and indeed it found a home. And this very card also turns out to be very useful for explaining how I would evaluate whether an idea that was a fresh idea that occurred in my writing, whether it did or did not need to become a main card in my system. Main cards are the building blocks of thoughts. They encapsulate ideas. Main cards take a fair amount of effort to produce, and I'm going to produce them because I think the thought on that card is going to be a source of fresh ideas. I ask myself a simple question. Do I want to think with this insight? Do I think this insight is going to generate new, novel, productive ideas? Oh, yes. Then you want a main card. Well, what about the thought itself? Do I want to stumble across this insight again in the future? That's reason enough to say, yes, I want to make it in a main card. If the novel idea is a fresh insight that is likely to generate many new ideas, then yes, definitely, I'm going to create a new main card. Thank you, Timothy, for reminding me to look for that. However, if the new insight is simply a derivation of what's already there, a conclusion that one might logically form as a result of the other ideas already present in the writing, then I probably wouldn't make a new main card for it because I would likely think of that idea anyway. Okay, the second question came from Bev. And Bev is talking about new research that comes along to fill in a gap. And among other things, she's asking here whether or not I would place it in various locations, such as in the bib card that's assembling for my writing and in the normal process for placing a main card. And the answer to both of those is yes. And let me show you an example of what I mean. As I was working on this issue, I noted some research that I really wanted to take a look at to do this very thing of fill in the gaps. The example that I'm going to talk about was a gap that I identified when I was doing my writing, where I wanted to find out what psychology had to say about the need to be seen. After consulting a number of sources that I had on hand, I found something that was related to that in The Developing Mind by Daniel Siegel. So I have a bib card going already, and my purpose so far has been to use the book as a reference work. And, well, I didn't need a new purpose here because that's exactly what I am doing. I already had 3 bib cards from that book. And my new work, I found what I was looking for on page 300. I wrote it up as a main card with what I learned from the source, my reaction, saying what the source was, providing it with a tagline, and then it was time to place the card. As a part of placing the card, I identified 3 possible cards in the system that this new card could join to form a conversation. After looking at each, I decided that the card on modesty was the best conversation for it to join. And so my new card got its number based on this parent card. I jotted the card number of the new card down with the note, but I also included it in the directory card for this book to keep a list of all of the main cards that were made so far from this book. So each of the cards that I've made so far from the book are now listed and accounted for on this directory card, which I file with the bib card. All of those steps are this part here where main cards go through the regular process. But now Bev also wants to know how that relates to the big bib card for the writing. And at this point, I've got 2 bib cards being filled for the writing. And here's the new card that I just created, and it inspired this section in my yellow legal pad. It starts down here and continues on the next page, and that forms the first draft for the production draft where this is turned into a paragraph. I think it's only right to point out that this idea of keeping a directory card to go with a bib card to show which main cards came from that source was Bev's idea. So I'm very thankful to Bev for that. And the idea of keeping a bib card for gathering my sources and tracking my writing to go with my projects is my adaptation of Bev's suggestion. So I'm just really finding myself quite thrilled with these directory cards. They are such time savers, and they will make the existing work be so much more leverageable into the future. I hope you enjoyed that video on learning while writing. I thought it was quite an excellent set of questions, and I hope that the answers have helped you as well. And I hope you will continue to write and continue to learn while you're writing. See you next time. Bye-bye.